What would you do if your fridge suddenly disappeared? No cold storage, no takeout, no way to keep your food from spoiling. Sounds like a nightmare, right? Well, this was everyday life in the Middle Ages. Imagine this. You've just hunted a deer, and now you're staring at a mountain of meat that could rot in days. What do? Panic? Nope. Medieval people didn't just survive, they thrived, using some of the most ingenious, bizarre, and downright clever methods to keep their food fresh for months, even years. Today, we're diving into their world of salting, smoking, fermenting, and more. These techniques weren't just effective, they shaped the course of history. So, grab a snack, preferably one that doesn't need refrigeration, and let's uncover how medieval folks turned food preservation into an art form. Imagine this. You've just butchered a pig, and now you've got a week's worth of meat sitting in your kitchen. But here's the catch: no fridge, no freezer, and no way to stop it from spoiling in just a few days. Sounds like a disaster, right? Well, this was the reality for medieval people. Winters were long and brutal, summers were hot and humid, and a single bad harvest could mean starvation. For them, food preservation wasn't just about convenience, it was a matter of life and death. But here's the kicker. They didn't have modern technology. No electricity, no vacuum sealers, not even a cooler. So what did they do? They got creative. Like really creative. They turned to science, nature, and a whole lot of ingenuity to keep their food fresh. And trust me, their methods were nothing short of genius. From salting meat until it looked like it was covered in snow to smoking fish so it could last for months, medieval folks were the original food hackers. So how did they do it? Let's dive in and uncover the secrets of their survival toolkit. All right, let's talk about salt, the ultimate medieval superpower. This stuff was so valuable, it was basically the Bitcoin of the Middle Ages. Roman soldiers were paid in salt. That's where we get the word salary from. And medieval traders built entire fortunes on it. But why was salt such a big deal? Well, it was the original food preservative. Here's how it worked. Meat and fish were either rubbed with salt or soaked in brine. The salt drew out moisture, creating an environment where bacteria couldn't survive. The result? Food that could last for months, even years. Imagine rubbing your steak with so much salt that it looks like it's been hit by a snowstorm. Yep, they used up to 20% of the food's weight in salt. That's a lot of salt. But here's the kicker. Salt wasn't just for meat. They even used it to ferment cabbage into sauerkraut. Not only did this preserve the cabbage, but it also packed a punch of essential vitamins, helping people survive those long, brutal winters. So next time you sprinkle salt on your fries, remember it's not just a seasoning, it's a medieval lifesaver. Now let's talk about smoking, the medieval art of turning food into flavor bombs. If salting was the science, smoking was the Picasso of preservation. Picture this. Medieval kitchens weren't just places to cook. They were full-blown smokehouses. Meat and fish hung from the rafters, slowly bathed in smoke from slow-burning fires. The smoke didn't just add that delicious, smoky flavor, it acted as a natural preservative, keeping bugs and bacteria at bay. And here's the fun part. They didn't just stick to one type of wood. Oh no, they were picky. Oak for beef, apple for pork, and cherry for poultry. It's like they were medieval food critics, carefully pairing woods with meats for the perfect flavor profile. But wait, it gets better. They didn't stop at meat. They smoked cheese, grains, and even eggs. Imagine cracking open a smoke-infused egg for breakfast. It's like medieval avocado toast. Fancy, flavorful, and way ahead of its time. And guess what? These techniques aren't just ancient history. Today, we still use them in dishes like smoked salmon, barbecue, and even smoked Gouda. So the next time you bite into a smoky slice of bacon, remember you're tasting a piece of medieval genius. All right, buckle up, because we're diving into the weird and wonderful world of fermentation. Yes, the same process that gives us beer, pickles, and your favorite sourdough bread was a medieval preservation powerhouse. But here's the twist. Medieval folks didn't just ferment food to keep it from spoiling, they turned it into a science, an art, and sometimes a dare. Here's how it worked. By creating an acidic environment, often with vinegar or natural bacteria, they could preserve everything from vegetables to fish. Think sauerkraut, pickled herring, and even fermented fish sauces. But the Vikings? Oh, they took it to the next level with something called lutefisk fish, preserved in lye until it turned jelly-like. Let's just say it's an acquired taste. Imagine biting into something that wobbles like jelly but tastes like, well, fish. Brave souls, those Vikings. But here's the coolest part. Fermented foods weren't just about survival, they were packed with probiotics, helping medieval people stay healthy long before modern medicine caught on. So while we're out here buying expensive probiotic supplements, medieval folks were just munching on sauerkraut. Talk about being ahead of their time. Now let's talk about drying, the medieval version of a food dehydrator. When salting and smoking weren't enough, medieval people turned to the simplest trick in the book: drying. No fancy tools, no complicated processes, just good old air and time. Here's how it worked. Meat was sliced paper thin and hung out to dry, turning it into jerky. Fruits like grapes and plums, they became raisins and prunes. And fish? Oh, they dried it until it was hard as a board. I'm talking so tough that Norwegian sailors used dried fish as plates. Imagine eating your dinner off a piece of fish. Talk about multitasking, right? But here's the genius part. Dried food was lightweight and portable. Armies could carry weeks' worth of food without needing a wagon train. It was the medieval version of a protein bar, compact, nutritious, and ready to go. So, the next time you grab a bag of beef jerky, remember you're holding a piece of medieval innovation. Now, let's talk about the medieval version of a freezer, ice houses, and caves. For the wealthy, these were the ultimate luxury. Imagine having a natural refrigerator that kept your food fresh even in the heat of summer. Sounds fancy, right? Well, medieval nobles were living the dream. Here's how it worked. During winter, they'd collect ice and snow and store it in underground chambers. These ice houses were insulated with sawdust or straw, and some could keep ice frozen for up to 2 years. Yes, you heard that right, 2 years. And here's the kicker. At Hampton Court Palace, they stored a whopping 75 tons of ice. That's enough for a medieval snow cone party. Picture this. Servants running around in winter, collecting ice like it was frozen treasure, and nobles enjoying chilled treats in the middle of summer. It's like they invented the first ever ice cream social. So, the next time you grab an ice cube from your freezer, remember, medieval nobles were doing the same thing, just with a lot more effort and a lot less convenience. Alright, let's talk about honey, the golden, sticky superhero of medieval preservation. This stuff isn't just sweet, it's a medieval superfood. Thanks to its natural antibacterial properties, honey never spoils. Yes, never. Archaeologists have found 3,000-year-old honey in Egyptian tombs that's still edible. Imagine preserving food so well that it outlasts entire civilizations. Here's how it worked. Medieval people would submerge fruits, meats, and even whole birds in honey. The honey created a protective layer that kept the food fresh for years. It's like nature's version of a vacuum seal. But honey wasn't just for food. Oh no, it was the medieval Swiss Army knife. Got a wound? Slap some honey on it. Can't sleep? Honey and warm milk. Medieval people were basically beekeeping geniuses. They even had special honey rooms in castles where they stored their precious preserves. So, the next time you drizzle honey on your toast, remember you're enjoying a piece of medieval innovation that stood the test of time. Literally. When in doubt, drown it in alcohol. That seems to have been the medieval motto because, let's face it, alcohol wasn't just for drinking, it was an amazing preservative. Medieval folks discovered that wine, beer, and spirits could keep food fresh for months, and they weren't shy about using it. Imagine a world where your pantry was basically a booze cabinet. Sounds fun, right? Here's how it worked. Fruits, vegetables, and even eggs were soaked in alcohol. The alcohol killed bacteria and added a unique flavor. Picture this, cracking open a wine-soaked egg for breakfast. It's like the medieval version of a mimosa, but with more protein. And trust me, medieval people weren't just preserving eggs. They went all out. They soaked everything from cherries to whole geese in alcohol. One medieval French castle went through over 100,000 liters of wine a year, and get this, half of it was for preserving food, not drinking. Cheers to that. But here's the kicker. We still use alcohol to preserve foods today. Think about your favorite fruit preserves, rum cakes, or even some desserts. That boozy flavor you love? It's a delicious reminder of medieval innovation. So, the next time you enjoy a treat with a hint of alcohol, remember you're tasting a piece of history. Bottoms up. When all else failed, medieval people turned to the earth itself. Yep, they literally buried their food. Sounds strange, right? But here's the thing, it worked. Burying food was a natural way to keep it cool and fresh, like having a fridge without the electricity bill. Picture this. Food wrapped in leaves or cloth, tucked into cool, dry soil where the earth's natural insulation kept it fresh for weeks or even months. It was perfect for storing things like root vegetables, cheese, and even butter. And speaking of butter, here's a wild fact. They buried it in bogs. The cool, oxygen-free environment preserved it so well that archaeologists have found 1,000-year-old butter that's still intact. Imagine digging up a chunk of butter that's older than your great-great-great-grandparents. It's like a time capsule, but edible. Burial was a clever way to use nature's resources. It's a reminder that sometimes the best solutions are the simplest ones. So the next time you open your fridge, remember, medieval folks were chilling their food underground, and it worked like a charm. Who needs electricity when you've got dirt, right? Spices weren't just for flavor, they were medieval lifesavers. These tiny aromatic powerhouses weren't just about making food taste good. They were about keeping it fresh. Thanks to their natural antimicrobial properties, spices like pepper, cinnamon, and cloves helped preserve meats and fish for weeks or even months. Here's how it worked. Meats and fish were rubbed with spices before being dried or smoked. The spices didn't just add flavor, they created an environment where bacteria couldn't survive. It's like giving your food a spicy suit of armor. But here's the kicker. Spices were so valuable that they were often worth their weight in gold. Medieval traders risked their lives traveling to distant lands to bring back these precious ingredients. Imagine risking pirates, storms, and deserts just for a bag of pepper. That's dedication. And guess what? We still use spices to preserve food today. Think of your favorite jerky or cured meats. That smoky, spicy flavor? It's a delicious reminder of medieval innovation. So, the next time you sprinkle cinnamon on your oatmeal or pepper on your steak, remember you're tasting a piece of history. From salting to burial, these 10 methods didn't just keep food fresh, they shaped the world. They fueled exploration, sparked trade wars, and even changed the course of history. Think about it. Without salted meat, armies couldn't march across continents. Without smoked fish, sailors couldn't sail the high seas. And without fermented foods, entire communities might have starved during long, harsh winters. These preservation techniques weren't just about survival. They were the backbone of medieval life, enabling people to thrive in a world without modern conveniences. But here's the coolest part. These methods aren't just ancient history. They're still alive and well in our kitchens today. That smoky bacon you love? You can thank medieval smoking techniques for that. That tangy sauerkraut on your hot dog? That's medieval fermentation at work. Even your favorite craft beer? Yep, that's medieval ingenuity in a glass. These methods were so effective they've stood the test of time, proving that sometimes the old ways are the best ways. The medieval kitchen wasn't just a place to cook, it was a hub of innovation. It was where science met creativity, where necessity sparked invention. From salting meat to fermenting vegetables, medieval people figured out how to work with nature to preserve their food. They didn't have fancy gadgets or modern technology, but they had something even more powerful, ingenuity. And that ingenuity continues to inspire us today. These methods are a reminder that sometimes the simplest solutions are the most brilliant. Whether it's burying butter in a bog or smoking fish over a fire, medieval preservation techniques show us how to make the most of what we have. They teach us that innovation doesn't always come from complexity. It can come from simplicity, resourcefulness, and a deep understanding of the world around us. So, if you enjoyed this deep dive into medieval food preservation, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more fascinating stories from history. Oh, and let me know in the comments which method would you try first. Would you bury your butter in a bog, smoke your own bacon, or maybe ferment your own sauerkraut? So, here's the takeaway. The next time you enjoy a slice of smoked bacon, a jar of pickles, or even a cold beer, take a moment to thank the medieval innovators who figured out how to keep food fresh without a single watt of electricity. Their legacy isn't just about survival, it's a testament to human creativity, resilience, and a whole lot of ingenuity. These methods didn't just feed people, they shaped the world. Think about it. Without salted meat, armies couldn't march across continents. Without smoked fish, sailors couldn't sail the high seas. And without fermented foods, entire communities might have starved during long, harsh winters. These preservation techniques weren't just about keeping food from spoiling, they were the backbone of medieval life, enabling people to thrive in a world without modern conveniences. But here's the best part. We're still using these methods today. That smoky barbecue you love? You can thank medieval smoking techniques for that. That tangy sauerkraut on your hot dog? That's medieval fermentation at work. Even your favorite craft beer? Yep, that's medieval ingenuity in a glass. These methods were so effective, they've stood the test of time, proving that sometimes the old ways are the best ways. The medieval kitchen wasn't just a place to cook, it was a hub of innovation. It was where science met creativity, where necessity sparked invention. From salting meat to fermenting vegetables, medieval people figured out how to work with nature to preserve their food. They didn't have fancy gadgets or modern technology, but they had something even more powerful: ingenuity. And that ingenuity continues to inspire us today. These methods are a reminder that sometimes the simplest solutions are the most brilliant. Whether it's burying butter in a bog or smoking fish over a fire, medieval preservation techniques show us how to make the most of what we have. They teach us that innovation doesn't always come from complexity. It can come from simplicity, resourcefulness, and a deep understanding of the world around us. So if you found this journey into the past as fascinating as I did, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more deep dives into history's hidden stories. Oh, and let me know in the comments, would you try medieval-style preserved meat? Would you bury your butter in a bog, smoke your own bacon, or maybe ferment your own sauerkraut? Until next time, stay curious, and remember, history isn't just in the past, it's on your plate.